Greetings, everyone. This is Professor Jeff Wilkerson at Luther College. Once again, talking to you about what to look for in the night sky, this time for the week of March 15th, 2021. Moving right along. We'll talk about a few things we've talked about before and a couple of new ideas here as we continue. This is a good metaphor, if you will, for what the sky brings us. It's all stuff that we've seen before, and it's all new stuff. Every time we look at the sky, we can look at it afresh every single time, even when we're looking at things that we've seen before. But there's always more to discover with the night sky, too. So often when we talk about the night sky, we'll be talking about this interesting mix of things we've talked about before, maybe with a little new angle, a little new twist, and things that we've not talked about before, things that are similar to what we've talked about before, and things that may seem like they're brand new. So this is what we're doing here for this week's video, and we're going to start with Castor and Pollux, the twin stars. So the twin stars are high in the sky right about 8 o'clock, maybe a little after 8 o'clock in the evening. So it's good and dark. It's as we head into spring, it's just settling into good darkness. You look south, but not too far south, and you'll see these two bright stars hanging out overhead. Remember, Orion's down over here, and Taurus is up over here. So if you know the bright stars of Orion, you see Aldebaran and Taurus. You see Castor and Pollux right here. Now, there's more or less, the line that connects north to south directly overhead is called the meridian. And they're on the meridian sometime between 8 and 8:30, 8 and 8:30 for this week, maybe a little before 8 by the time we get to the end of the week. But that gets you the idea of when to look for these stars. Now, for me, I'm observing from a latitude of 43 degrees north. And 43 degrees north, remember the projection of the latitude lines onto the sky mark what we call declination. So we measure the north-southness, if you will, of the stars with something called declination, just like we measure our north-southness with southness. And you try to make up words, sometimes you stumble over them. That's just the way it goes. We measure our north-southness with latitude. So when we project our latitude onto the sky, the point directly overhead is called the zenith. And that point directly overhead, things that have a declination equal to our latitude can appear directly overhead. Anything that has a declination below our latitude will appear to the south of that directly overhead point, and anything that has a declination greater than our latitude will appear to the north of that. I'm talking about northern hemisphere observers. You can project all of this onto the southern hemisphere, of course, and should. But Pollux has a declination of about 28 degrees. And so it's going to, for me, appear about 15 degrees. At 8 o'clock at night this next week, I look directly overhead. Pollux is going to appear about 15 degrees south of directly overhead. So that gives you a chance to look at that. Recall, that's about a fist and a half with your fist held out at arm's length. So about a fist or between 1 and 2 fist widths south of directly overhead, you find Pollux, and Castor's right there next to it. So you got Castor and Pollux, the twin stars. Go out and learn them this week. Pay attention to that. Yeah. Now, about 30 degrees or so, roughly speaking, 3 fist widths. I didn't look this up, but it's roughly 3 fist widths or maybe a little bit more from Pollux down this direction, down to the south and the east. You come to Regulus. Now, these are all really bright stars. Castor, Pollux, and Regulus, all among the 15 or 20 brightest stars in the sky, maybe even higher ranked than that. So they're really good bright stars that you see popping out there. They all have a bluish-white cast to them, a little bit of tint to them. Regulus is down here. So Regulus is in the constellation Leo. Leo looks like a triangle and a backward question mark, a sickle, it's often called. We'll talk more. Leo's a great marker of spring. So it's a pretty traditional marker of the spring sky. So over the next few weeks, we're pretty likely to talk more about Leo. I honestly have no idea what I'm going to talk about from one point to the next, so who knows what we'll do. But it seems pretty likely Leo will show up. Anyway, 3 or 4 fist widths from Pollux down here to Regulus. You see these two bright stars, this bright star. Regulus, to give you a sense, Regulus is both south and east of Pollux and Castor up here. So that it gets to the meridian. It gets to the line directly overhead significantly later. It'll be much closer to 10 p.m. When it's on, for me here anyway, 10 p.m. when it's on the meridian next week. And so, actually, I have no idea if I corrected for daylight savings time, which occurs here now or not. Goodness, don't think about these things in advance. So, but it's going to be 2 hours after Pollux is there. You'll find Regulus get to that meridian line. Regulus has a declination that's closer to 10 degrees. 11 degrees is its declination. And so it's closer to 10 degrees. So when I look directly overhead, I'm going to have to look 30 degrees, more than 3 fist widths, probably to find Regulus to the south. So Regulus will be noticeably further south than Pollux when I'm looking directly overhead to find it a couple of hours later than when I've looked to find Pollux directly overhead. So this we get a sense of sort of spacing on the sky, motion on the sky, and get a sense of how long it takes one object to move to be more or less directly overhead on the meridian line from one object to the next object. Now, if you take this line that connects Pollux to Regulus down this way, it passes right through the constellation Cancer. And we talked about Cancer a couple of weeks ago. I know we did. And Cancer's a tough constellation. It has very few stars. All of its stars are order, some are a little bit brighter, but on an order of fourth magnitude. And fourth magnitude is a relatively faint star as far as the brightest stars in the constellation go. These stars are 5 to 10 times brighter than the very brightest stars in Cancer. And so Cancer is a hard constellation to pick out. But it's got 2 really nice open star clusters. It's got the relatively young beehive cluster, it's known as M44. And this line that passes from Pollux down to Regulus goes just above the beehive cluster. So if you get your binoculars out, you might be able to see it without your binoculars. It's a nice, big, sprawling open star cluster. So you look, if you got a good dark sky, look for it without your binoculars. But if you got your binoculars handy, use your binoculars, see if you can find this glittering jewel of a star cluster. It's relatively young. It's about 2/3 of a billion years, which maybe doesn't sound young, but as open star clusters go, that's a fairly young open star cluster. Not the youngest by far, but it's on the younger side for sure. As opposed to M67, which is down here. So this is just a few degrees. This is less than a fist width below that line that you draw from Pollux to Regulus. And so you scan across almost halfway down here between the two, drop just below that line, and your binoculars should be able to pick that up. You should be able to pick that out with your naked eye, probably without the binocular aid if you've got a dark sky. M67 is a little bit fainter, much older. A pretty young open star cluster, very old star cluster when you drop a little bit further to the south and just a tiny little bit further to the east from M44. So scan downward with your binoculars as you move this direction, probably less than 10 degrees, and you'll come down to less than a fist width or an order of a fist width down. You come to M67, and M67 also in Cancer there is, remember, this was about 2/3 of a billion years old. M67 is on the order of 4 billion years old. So one of the older open star clusters that's around. It's approaching 8 times older than M44. So this is a nice young glittering star cluster, an older star cluster that's had a chance to evolve just a little bit. So you get a chance, see if you can identify some of the stars in Cancer around here that are going to be halfway between Gemini and Leo. Be sure to take a look at Castor, Pollux, and Regulus, and when they are on the meridian line, that line that connects north to south directly overhead, and you get a chance, see if you can find these fine open star clusters in Cancer, and have a good week of observing, everybody. Thank you.